Now we're going into the author's notes and interpretation about that part of the epic, which I think it's been incredibly useful, especially since a lot of lines of text, not a lot, but some of the lines of the text have been missing. And so she talks about putting things together. And also, given that she has studied a lot of Inanna myths and epics and stories, she has really beautiful understanding of each one. So when Inanna places the crown of the steppe on her head and assumes her role as queen of the land, I'm going to go down to, I'm curious. So in Sumerian section of the Philadelphia University Museum, an exquisite queen's crown excavated from Ur and dated around 2500 BC is on display. Unlike most European queen's crowns, which are made of solid gold embedded with precious gems, the Sumerian queen's crown is a band of lapis lazuli beads to which are sewn the earth's wonders, miniature golden fruit trees, plants, and tiny animals of different kinds. Yeah, that makes sense to me. They're very much in relationship with the land. Okay. As queen of the land of Sumer, Inanna is responsible to and receives her power from the resources and fertility of the land. With the shikara on her head, Inanna goes to the sheepfold, which is the center of nature in Sumer. Leaning against a fruit tree, she rejoices in her own natural powers, her wondrous vulva. In Sumerian, the word for sheepfold, womb, vulva, loins, and lap is the same. The images presented in the first few lines, shepherd, sheepfold, apple tree, young woman, and vulva, are all related to fertility. Gone is the brooding, fearful adolescent girl of the halupu tree. Inanna has received her throne and crown. The story Inanna and the God of Wisdom begins with Inanna delighting in her womanhood and wishing to test its powers. Inanna decides to go on a journey. Often in heroic stories, before the hero sets out on a journey, he takes up and brandishes his sword or manly weapon. In the halupu tree, before young Gilgamesh ventures into Inanna's garden, he demonstrates his extraordinary virility by raising a bronze axe weighing 450 pounds. Likewise, the young Inanna, about to set out on a journey, exults in an amazingly straightforward way in her feminine powers, her wondrous vulva, which was also very much revered as a place that created humanity, a place that was sort of connected to the cosmos and connected to the unknown realms, connected to the cosmic unknown, and kind of where souls pass through the worlds into human existence. Inanna decides to go on a journey. Her wondrous vulva. Inanna sets out to visit Enki, the god of wisdom, who is also the god of the waters. In the halupu tree, after the new world is divided, Enki appears, but he's not assigned a fixed domain. Yet without the presence on earth of Enki, the god of waters, no life is possible. With his presence, water, which permeates and fertilizes the land, gives the earth the power of life and creativity. This, in part, accounts for the dual aspects of Enki's powers. For as well as being god of the waters, he also has many powers over the earth. In Sumerian, Enki means literally god of the earth. Enki's iconographic emblem, the goat fish, further indicates his earth-water aspect. The goat goes to the highest point of all earth animals, and the fish the lowest depths. The fertilizing, free-flowing, purifying, calming, and raging characteristics of waters are personified in the many roles Enki plays in Sumerian stories. He's the creator of humankind, Enki and Ninmah, the fertilizer of the land and organizer of his creations, Enki and the world order. He's a magician and a master of ritual and incantation. Rather than an upholder of the laws of the gods, he's a mediator between men, the debate literature, and a mediator before the gods on the part of the mortals. I don't know how to say that one. Okay. Always following his own feelings and instincts, Enki is a great shaman, the descent of Inanna, and the Hulupu tree. Enki's sacred shrine, the Abzu, is built above the regions of the underworld. His city, Eridu, is located near where the fresh and salt waters meet, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers and the Persian Gulf converge. When we consider the myriad aspects of the god of wisdom, Inanna's decision to journey to Eridu can be understood as a wish to be fertilized by the sexual as well as the magical, spiritual, and cultural powers of life, both for herself and her queendom. With youthful audacity, she boasts that she will bless Enki, the god of wisdom. But Enki refers to Inanna as the young woman and bids his servant Izamud treat Inanna as if she were an equal. Each deity supposes superiority over the other. As soon as Enki and Inanna begin to drink, Enki, the overconfident, overeffusive host, offers the treasures of his kingdom to his guest. She accepts. Enki is full of generosity. Inanna is full of intention. Gaiety surrounds them. Enki donates and Inanna takes. After Inanna itemizes the me that she has been given, they are placed on the boat of heaven. Inanna's boat of heaven, which Inanna in the courtship of Inanna and Dumuzi compares her wondrous vulva, is of sufficient amplitude to hold all the me. The ordering of the me offers some indication of what the Sumerians or the Sumerian priesthood who had possession of the me valued. The first 8 groupings center on the priesthood and the rituals involved in serving the gods, the king, and the temple. Since the me are referred to as the holy me, it can be inferred that the attributes of civilization were derived from and inspired by the gods and made available to the people through the institution of the temple and its servants. The last 6 groupings, beginning with the art of the hero, are related to humanity's concerns: political power, the secure dwelling place, crafts, husbandry, emotions, the family, counseling, and decision. By the end of the story, we have been announced 4 times. The me have been announced 4 times. Since there are about 100 me, this method of listing the me 4 times within a story may have been an early Sumerian pedagogical technique for learning one's me in an enjoyable manner. Meaning that, again, this epic was something that shaped their society, like the epic of Jesus or the epic of the Greek gods. Like, these stories were told over and over and over again because this is how they shaped their society, with these characters, deities, values. So I was just finishing if a child heard the story of the me told me he imagined one child that he imagined the me's were loaded onto the boat in inflatable plastic containers of different shapes and sizes. They were stored in these containers. Then, when a certain me was needed, the container was squeezed slightly to let out a little fear, kindness, or courage. That's really cute. So the author of this book is telling how a child related to that. There's a wondrous irony in the last of Enki's gifts to Inanna. When Inanna sets out for Eridu, she's eager for adventure, eager to test her powers, eager to be fertilized. During the drinking bout, she happily accepts each gift. But at the moment she receives from Enki the last gift, the making of decisions, Inanna's eagerness turns from bravado to true decision. Inanna decides she wants to keep the me, and so she hastily and prudently departs. Although most of the me stress the power and importance of the priesthood and servitude without the making of decisions, the other me are meaningless. Without the individual's decision, there could be no kingship, leather-making, princess, priestess, counseling. It is the will, strength, and ability to make decisions that house divine attributes. It is the will that perceives, believes, and takes action. Adding further irony to the story, the great god of wisdom loses his own sense of form and control during the drunken frivolity. Enki, the protector of Sumer's most spiritualized treasure, the me, symbol of the ultimate form of things, loses his will. To understand this dual aspect of Enki, his highly differentiated standards of culture, as well as his carousing, companionable frivolity, is to have a fuller view of wisdom. As god of wisdom, Enki knows that the powers of knowledge need to be shared. As king of Eridu, he knows that the best rule is the self-sufficiency of his citizens. As father, he knows that the best way to raise his children is by encouraging initiative and independence, like the first drop of water, which generously offers a place to the second drop. Enki, in his state of drunkenness, freely shares his own powers. And if you are thinking right now about the sort of like the flirtatiousness piece, or it's important to note that they use the word like father and daughter in more like the word uncle or advisor. So it's not a biological relationship. And the other thing I wanted to mention here is when they're talking about the temples and the aspects of priesthood and priestesshood, something that I have learned in my research is that I don't know exactly, I can't say exactly when this part of this epic was written, but I do know that for a large part of civilization, when there were temples and there were priestesses that were in devotion to different things, different parts of humanity. There were priestesses that were devoted to childbirth, priestesses that were devoted to death, priestesses that were devoted to music, priestesses that were devoted to sexuality and the sacred aspects of sexuality. And just sort of, there was this aspect of devotion that didn't come from fear. And I think there's a time in religion where religion switched over to an authoritarian experience, an authoritarian, power over. And so we have to sort of understand that the derivatives of these words like priestess and prostitute mean different things to us now than they meant in those times. And so I want to share the context that temples and priests and priestesses, when we hear those words now, we think of someone who has power over other people. We think of temples as a place to sort of worship this God that has power over everything, and this sort of God that has the power to condemn. And the early religions were not hierarchical. It was a relationship, and the people had relationship with these kind of cosmic energies, these cosmic characters that each held different sort of vibration, awareness, characteristics. The European gods and goddesses in Celtic, indigenous ways, and Druidic indigenous ways talk about they have different gods and goddesses to different aspects of life. There's, the goddess that is devoted to the home and of fire, and they're gods, and they're just devoted to different aspects of human life. And the idea in those times is that you would go and you would be in relationship with that energetic or archetype or energy, and you could receive awareness, or you could ask and have a prayer. And so these kind of monotheistic ways of being in religion that came with the Roman Catholic Church, and that sort of, I'm going to say, the patriarchal Christianity that was created, because the Gnostic Christianity didn't start that way. But so I just want to give context for these words as we're hearing them, that they meant a different thing in societies that were egalitarian, that were in relationship with the land and the plants and the animals, and they were all seeing it. I think the closest thing we really have to have context for this in these times is what we hear of Native American culture. So, and how there was a relationship with, so, okay, coming back in here. Going back into the author's sharing. Yes. As God of wisdom, Enki knows that the powers of knowledge need to be shared. As king of Eridu, he knows the best rule. Okay, self-sufficiency, we did that part. Perhaps the vessel of Arash from which Enki drinks partially influences his generous sense of mind. Arash, the primordial mother of the earth, does not hold back. In giving birth, Arash gives away everything. All that a plant or tree needs is given in the birthing. No power is withheld, but surely the beer within the vessel also contributes to Enki's fluid state. Immediate concerns, cares, and boundaries vanish. Enki's ego melts. The god of wisdom gives to the young queen of Uruk all the necessary knowledge for the ruling of her kingdom. Yet, as soon as the drink wears off and his consciousness returns, so do Enki's possessive, jealous, and controlling aspects. Enki, god, king, father, magician, wants the riches for himself. So I think it's pretty profound that the first book we have in the world talks about these major god players, these gods and this god and this goddess being very full spectrum beings and having different parts of them and having the sort of the dark and the light, and Inanna especially being a human and a goddess. She's both of those things in this epic. Now for the other side of the god of wisdom, the dark shaman who withholds rather than gives birth emerges, and Enki summons his occult powers. Of the 6 creatures who guard the treasures of Eridu, we have fragmentary information on only 2. Sorry, my light is getting low and I need to fix that. The Inkum and the Labamas. The Inkum are protective spirits created by Enki and placed under the floors and foundations of Eridu. They are part human, part animal, and have hair that hangs loosely behind them. The Labamas are dragon-like stone statues who guard the doorways of Eridu and act as messengers for Enki. Throughout world mythology, wherever there is a great treasure, there are also dragons, monsters, and demons to guard the treasure. The mysteries or spiritual treasures offer abundance and riches, but only to those capable of both winning and protecting them. Enki, who has lost his treasures, sends his servant Izimud with the Inkum creatures to rescue the Me of Eridu. When Izimud requests that Inanna return the treasures she's been given, she's indignant. She rages against her father. She no longer sees him as the supportive, generous father, but as the one who withholds, insisting on his own rights and desires. In her childish eyes, her father's a tyrant, a fraud, a monstrous liar. However, when Enki's henchman sees the boat of heaven, Inanna drops her attitude of deceived, dependent, naive child. She recognizes the reality of her father's dual nature, and she takes action. Again, this father figure. By summoning her own Sakal, Ninshubur, Inanna defends the treasure she wishes to bring to her city. Although a Sakal is a servant who may act in many different capacities, a vizier, minister, chancellor, messenger, general, warrior, a Sakal who carries out orders often has powers superior to his or own master. Inanna Sakal Ninshubur, often referred to as a servant of the holy shrine of Uruk, seems to represent the inner spiritual resources of Inanna, which are intended for the greater good of Sumer. In other Sumerian literature, Ninshubur acts as the Sakal of sky god On, the creator and oldest of the gods, and as his Sakal, she would have access to his heavenly, numinous powers. Because the text is not decipherable at this point, we do not know exactly how Ninshubur defeats Enki's monsters, the sea monsters. There is a clue, however, in Inanna's cryptic lines. Water has not touched your hand, water has not touched your foot. Enki's powers are in the water, and if water, or semen, has never touched Ninshubur, Enki can have no hold over her. Also, if water has never touched Ninshubur, she is probably pure spirit, and since she comes from the east, Ninshubur means queen of the east, her powers probably connected to the sun, are able to quench those of Enki's water. The Queen of the East aspect of Ninshubur is related to the cosmological morning star aspect of Inanna. It is Inanna's heavenly power that defeats the crafty, protean, earthly Enki. As Ninshubur overpowers each of Enki's magic creatures, the boat of heaven nears Uruk. There's insufficient information available to us to differentiate among the 6 Eridu creatures. Most likely, there's some sort of progression of power. The creatures become larger, more powerful, or more treacherous. By defeating Inki's magic creatures, Inanna acquires their corresponding shamanic powers. If you don't know what the word shamanic means, it means, from what I know, sort of the earth-based spirituality, and interacting with kind of air, earth, fire, water. Okay, so when she returns to Uruk, she enters as the heroic shamanic queen. A hero wrests the treasure from the adversary. A shaman uses higher powers to protect the well-being of the community. And a queen, mother of her country, offers her people that which will nourish them both physically and spiritually. Indeed, when Inanna returns to Uruk, she's acclaimed, and even more than she had expected. As the Mi are unloaded and presented to the people of Uruk, they are announced for the 4th time. Then suddenly more Mi appear than Enki had given. These Mi center on the feminine attributes. At the beginning of the story, Inanna flaunted her raw feminine vitality, her wondrous vulva. En route and in battle, her powers were tested, and the joining forces with more spiritual resources, Inanna emerged a fuller woman. She passed from vulva to provider, from hero to queen. Thus, she was rewarded by the great earth shaman, Father Enki, with the art of woman. And this, too, she offers to the people of Uruk.